into the urban centers and the economic centers of the country, which are CBDs and the towns as we know them. The new laws are coming, and they are coming thick and fast. And at the time, it is not possible for blacks and whites to actually meet. With that in mind, new policies are required to be responsive to this new challenge of how do we move the laborers and how do we get people to move in a vast country such as ours. In 1930, this is the scene of the time. And the apartheid government responds with the Motor Carrier Transport Act. And that act creates overnight a monopoly of transport services only owned by the state. The act specifically prohibits transportation of goods and passengers by road for profit. So you could give people a lift, yes, but you could not make them pay. And you could carry goods for a friend from the hinterlands to the urban centers and bring them an old bed or whatever, but you couldn't charge them to bring the goods into those areas. And therefore, the South African transport monopoly was held by the company Piet van der Merwe works for, the South African Transport Services, and which was the forerunner to what was later to become the modern-day Transnet. As a consequence, and to where we are today, more challenges emerged out of this specific challenge. And the biggest catalyst that made changes and that needed a clear review of this monopoly type of industry, because back then, a principle of self-sufficiency was undertaken by government. The idea really was that government across all modes of transportation will provide transport for both goods as well as people. But as we know, the system didn't hold up very, very well. And as we do know, the services that were determined for black people were quite erratic, and services were quite unreliable, they were unpredictable, they were less subsidized, and it created a huge challenge. By 1976, the riots had come in Soweto and all other related areas in other townships as well, the Cape Flats, in Botshabelo, everywhere else. And after the 1976 thing and the riots were there, quickly the boycotts for buses followed. And with the bus boycotts, the apartheid government could no longer ignore the challenge that was there. By 1977, they appointed a presidential commission of inquiry to look into the transport industry. And that was called the Van Breda Commission of Inquiry. It recommended more competition, and it recommended that there should be less regulation of the industry. But these still were quite half-hearted measures, and the new would-be players were never going to be competitive. They were facing a huge challenge of the apartheid machine in terms of subsidization of its own transportation services. By 1987, a white paper was written on transport policy, and it was tabled. And by 1988, the Transport Deregulation Act of 1988 was passed. With it, it became a free-for-all overnight, with the deregulation and allowing people now to do so, have allowed what we have seen up until 1996, with the emergence of taxi organizations and the first national taxi body, SAPTA, the South African Black Taxi Association, emerging to be a major player, and the first use of the minibus taxi as we know it today began to be a reality on our roads. And that still, many of the taxi people were never licensed at the time, and as you may know, very soon other bodies emerged other than SAPTA. There was Felter, there was Salter, there was all of them. And at the last count, there were 13 of this type of bodies. But of course, the major ones were the 7 that ultimately merged. But this was not sustainable in the way it was. By 1995, the new democratic government has just been a year old and has taken over. Cognizant of the quagmire that we were facing and the death of thousands of people on the roads and the shootings and the so-called the taxi wars, basically, these bodies largely, and I'm sorry, Ntate Bosch was one of the leaders of these bodies, but they operated more like the mafia, and they fought each other for routes, and they fought each other for taxi ranking facilities, and if they couldn't get their way, the barrel of the gun was the major form of communication at the time. The democratic government by 1995 appointed a national taxi task team, which was chaired by then Limpopo MEC for Transport, the late Farsani, and it had experts in this regard. Oh, sorry, he's still alive. Hey. Apologies to him. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I will send him special apologies. And he chaired the task team, and that task team did its work. And by 1996, it made serious recommendations. Their 1996 report was approved by then Minister Dola Oma. Indeed, he's the one who's late. Yes. And subsequent to that, it was approved by Cabinet and accepted. Among the key recommendation was that the transport sector must be re-regulated. And with that re-regulation thing, also it said that all the warring factions and the bodies that were there needed to be dealt away with, and we should have a single industry regulatory body for the entire taxi industry, irrespective of whether you utilize a mini bus taxi, irrespective whether you utilize a sedan or whatever, you were to be regulated and represented by this one industry body. So from there, as we know, a number of those recommendations have been implemented. And in pursuit of the implementation of some of the many recommendations that were there, a body called SATACO then emerged as a merger of the various of the bodies together. It was not easy to get all of them to agree to fall into one body. And there were still others who were unhappy with that, and which culminated into the 2001 conference in Durban, which brought in what we know today as SANTACO, the South African National Taxi Association. SANTACO had always been envisaged to be an overarching body, a council that will look at all facets of this. Therefore, there were those recommendations that were never implemented fully. Let me give just one example of the many that are there. One of them was on the fact of safety. With statistics of the day in 2005 showing that 46% of all accidents happening on our roads involved minibus taxis, and so many people were dying as a result of this. Safety measures had to be put into place and considerations had to be adjusted in that regard. And therefore, the government decided that one of the things we needed to do, and which is what the recommendation of the task team of 1996 has decided, was that have a specific vehicle that is owned, and the copyright is owned by government, that will have serious security features and safety features, that will have doors opening on both sides of the vehicle, that will have twin wheels at the back, that will have reinforced chassis, that will have a whole host of other measures, including safety belts for each and every one of the passengers, that will have all windows as emergency exits. And all of this were written and the specifications were done. But however, under pressure from the manufacturers of vehicles in South Africa, and as you may see, you can look around and see the dominant force. I won't mention names. I don't want government to be sued. But you can tell for yourself. The reality is that with the harsh lobbying and behind-the-scene work, half-hearted measures were accepted to convert what essentially was designed as a family vehicle to transport you to a holiday as a family into a vehicle that is a passenger-carrying commute vehicle. And half-hearted measures were put in. The chassis were never reinforced. The back wheels were never doubled. As you may see, some of them came, yes, with some seat belts. Some of them are not as functional as they're supposed to be. But that was the case as we had. So some measures were done. Some of the things were implemented. But the key thing was issue of formalization. The industry bodies argue this matter that we have been formalized. And we say yes, but if we look at what formalization had to take us to, we have done half-hearted measures. We are not fully where we should have been. This is by no mistake the mistake of the industry. Government has had to make a self-introspection, look at itself, and say we should have taken this to its logical conclusion. And as the program director, my colleague Ayanda, points out, it's not the job of our current administration to blame previous governments. It's to build on what they have done and to take the conclusion to their logical thing. Therefore, the Indaba for us, Honorable Minister, Deputy Minister, represents an opportunity for us to do three things. First, to look back and take stock of where we come from, but also importantly today, to assess where we are, and how is the industry looking, what is happening now, who is the biggest beneficiary, to evaluate the entire value chain, and why is it that the operator is not the biggest benefit. And also the commuters are also not benefiting from such an erratic service that we see. And therefore, we also need to take stock of the 1996 milestone and to say how far have we gone in the implementation process and the recommendation thereto. Are they still valid? Can we implement them? What are the impediments and what are the challenges? But most importantly and thirdly, we need to plot and chart a way forward and a course for the future that is solid, that is hinged on the key issues of us reimagining the future of a world-class taxi industry in South Africa. Minister, we look to the day when we see the conductor saying to the passengers, will you have beef or chicken? And if we arrive there, then we know we have a world-class service in our country. And therefore, the Indaba should discuss all issues, no holds barred, no holy cows, and all the key matters: unity, governance, subsidization, profitability, sustainability of the industry, passenger facilities, passenger services and professionalism, safety, compliance, and the regulatory environment, issues of code of conduct for drivers, for operators, training, operating conditions, and all of the issues that are necessary. And government too must make good on subsidization issue, which is the key matter. And to that we say, we look future to the deliberations without any hindrances and without any things. And the minister will surely articulate the matters that the taxi Lekgotla will need to deal with in detail. And that's what our job needs to do and where we come from. And that is the scene of today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May we please get another round of applause for our Director General, ladies and gentlemen. You know, just listening to him, I couldn't help but think, hey, ons kon van ver. We have come such a long way, ladies and gentlemen, but we still have much further to go. And I think it's important for us to stop, to reflect, and to look back at where we come from, where we are, and where we're going. But we dare not linger in the phase of reflection, lest we lose momentum. We need to eventually roll up our sleeves and work. We're under no illusion, ladies and gentlemen, that the work that lies ahead of us is mammoth. This is a big task on our shoulders. And we, as a government, have taken solace in the fact that we are not alone. We take courage in the fact of knowing that there is a solid social compact at work. It has been said that if you want to go fast, you travel alone. But if you want to go far, you need to travel with a companion. And so today we would like to give thanks to those who have been our companions in this journey, our stakeholders who have made sure that we do not work in silos. They are here with us, and we enjoy support from a wide range of stakeholders within this sector of transportation, public transport, and the taxi industry in particular. We're going to hear from them now, ladies and gentlemen. They're going to give us a message of support. It will not be longer than 5 minutes, just words of encouragement, what they hope to see as we launch this Taxi Lekgotla public discourse platform. So first and foremost, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to call upon the Treasurer General of the BBC, Bonolo Ramogele. Ramogele will join us representing business. Thank you very much.
Am I audible? Perfect. I want to just acknowledge the Minister of Transport, Fikile Mbalula, the Deputy Minister, Dikeledi Magadzi, the MEC of Transport and Roads in the province of Gauteng, Jacob Mamabolo, as well as the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee of Transport in Parliament, Msebenzi Zwane, and the President of SALGA, as well as the President of Santaco, Philip Daibosh. As I was going through the program, I noticed that the Minister, the Portfolio Committee Chair, and Mr. Daibosh are all from Free State. I think in future, just to save costs, we can have this gathering in Bloemfontein. The Black Business Council, as the overarching mother body and confederation of black business in South Africa, we've been asked as to what interest do we have in the taxi industry. And our answer is very simple. We've got an interest wherever black businesses are operating and ensuring that they get the most equitable participation in any economic activity in the country. And it also happens that Santaco is an affiliate of the Black Business Council. We are here to pledge support to this initiative, and it's quite a momentous and historic initiative. And we are very much happy that we had a meeting with the minister in April, and one of the things that in the ructions that were happening, he kept on mentioning to say that an Indaba is coming, an Indaba is coming. And I think he even said September. So I think he has beat his deadline by even over a month to actually have this particular engagement. So we are very much happy that he takes black business serious, and the department is taking the issue of black business people serious and putting it at the top of the agenda. I will not go into the details of the ecosystem of and the history of the taxi industry. I think the DG has done an eloquent and fantastic job at that. But we just want to articulate some of the issues that we would like to see coming up strongly when it comes to the Indaba and whatever outcomes come out of that particular engagement. And at the core of it is economic freedom and economic empowerment. because we look at the taxi industry and we proudly say that it is a black-owned industry, but when we go and drill down deeper and see who exactly benefits from this industry, and it's not us. It's people who are not sitting here. And I'm looking at the audience and I'm seeing that none of the beneficiaries of the industry are sitting here. But we are the ones that do the bidding as black people. We have looked at what the government has spent over the past few years when it comes to the recapitalization program. It's almost 5 billion rands that has been put into the kitty, and a majority of that money has actually found its way to people who don't look like us. Because a certain percentage of the money, I think it's about 120,000 rands or so, goes to a deposit of a vehicle, and that deposit of that vehicle goes to a certain company that I will not mention by name, albeit that I be sued or the BBC gets into some litigation issues. So these deposits are put into place, and the taxi that is borrowing this money to buy a taxi ends up paying in certain instances as far as 27% for a vehicle. I think those are rates that were reserved for us when we were buying bedroom suites and all sorts of weird and wonderful furniture and fittings when we were growing up, not for a vehicle that is meant to be a business. So we need to look, Minister, urgently at the issue of the financing and who exactly benefits, because even these very same entities that are benefiting are underpinned and underwritten by the Public Investment Corporation at the end of the day. So it's pensioners' money that is being utilized to keep the very same industry operators in slavery mode. So I'm not going to go again into the details, but I just wanted to pledge support on behalf of the Black Business Council, and we look at the entire value chain as this indaba sits to ensure that black people are the real beneficiaries of this industry, and we are not just mercantile capitalists that just get by with the bare minimum. Thank you.
Applause, please, ladies and gentlemen. You know, I'm reminded by one of my favorite sayings, or about one of my favorite sayings, just hearing from the president or the treasurer general, at least of the BBC. It says, nothing for us without us. Nothing for us without us. It says, anything that you do for me, without me, you do against me. So it's important that those who participate in the taxi industry are not just consumers of the vehicles or the services, but indeed that they benefit from the value chain. So thank you very much for that. Ladies and gentlemen, in the interest of time, I'm just going to try and see if we can speed things up a little bit. Let us now call upon the president of FEDUSA, Mr. Godfrey Silematsela, just to represent Labour on our behalf. I'm also just going to say that we will not be having a representative from NACTU, and that is because the Deputy General Secretary, Mr. Edward Tobejane, has a bereavement to attend to. So he asked that we just highlight the fact that he would have loved to be here, but he's unable to attend. But we welcome and we appreciate the contribution from FEDUSA. Mr. Silematsela, if you may take to the stage, please, sir. Thank you.
Good morning. The Honorable Minister of Transport of the Republic of South Africa, Mr. Fikile Mbalula, the Deputy Minister of Transport, Ms. Dikeledi Magazi, President of SALCA, Mr. Bingadi Meni, the President of Santaco, Mr. Tai Bosch, Chairperson of the Parliamentary Committee of Transport, Mr. Msebenzi Zwane, Gauteng MEC for Transport, Mr. Mamabolo, honorable guests, comrades and friends, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. Amanda. Honorable Minister, it is indeed a great privilege for me to be afforded this opportunity on behalf of the Federation of Union of South Africa, FEDUSA, to address participants in this August gathering who are united in their desire to finding a lasting solution to the myriad of challenges facing the taxi industry, in view of vital socio-economic role that it plays in our country. It would be most opportune at this juncture, Honorable Minister and guests, to pause for a moment and remind ourselves of both the immense economic contribution that this industry makes in our country, South Africa, as well as the transformation required holistically. So as we pause and give honor to the women of this great nation during Women's Month, we equally need to take introspect of the females that are equally engaged in this sector, albeit if only a mere handful that must be recognized and developed in this critical sector. If you look at Statistics South Africa's latest National Household Survey figures show that the taxis are still considered as one of the preferred modes of transport, moving 68% of the 5.4 million commuters to and from work on a daily basis. This notable contribution to our economy by the taxi industry, made of nearly 200,000 vehicles, is estimated of more than 40 billion a year and employs 250,000 indirect and indirect job opportunities, which includes drivers, taxi marshals, and administrative support. The extended family system in our country, on which millions more are dependent on the industry for survival and educating of their children. The importance of the industry can therefore not be overemphasized. It is for this reason, Honorable Minister, that as FEDUSA and organized labor, we are supportive of the Department of Transport's plans to spend a projected 185.5 million over the medium term in rejuvenating and formalizing this vital sector of our economy. Not only that, Minister and guests, but as FEDUSA, we see in the taxi industry a rare opportunity to practically implement our guiding philosophy of decent work, which in simple terms means work with dignity, where the work is seen as endowed in inviolable human dignity, and respects the employer, is sincerely respected by the employer in return. Decent work means that taxi drivers and all other category of workers in the industry enjoy full access to statutory employment benefits such as pensions and provident funds, medical aid for themselves and their families, formal work, contracts, paid leave, and freedom from both physical and emotional violence. Because at the end of the day, they are our compatriots, they are our spouses, and they are parents to their beloved children like all of us. Therefore, their world of work should be free from all forms of maladies. However, Honorable Minister, we would also like to use this opportunity to appeal to our brothers and sisters to start helping the government to consequently help the industry by
afford to pay the fares that they were charged in the transport services that were available. In fact, specifically speaking, they could not afford 4 pennies in 1994. It was a big issue. You increase 4 pennies for a trip from Alexandra to Johannesburg, you make it 5 pennies. No, we can't afford that. Well, we talk of certain big numbers today. Fast forward to today again. Minister, we agree with the thrust of most of the 66 slide presentations that you presented at NEDLEC. Most especially the point that the discussion about subsidies
of ShopRite and Checkers, they are supporting those cars, not those people. Hence, I'm saying we pledge them to come also meter taxes. We want to change that. It's not to say we don't like e-hailing, but under the current situation, you cannot compete with somebody who's charging R2 when you know that is an enslavement. But our government should be there assisting us in this regard. I don't want to talk a lot. Thank you very much.
Minister Mbalula encouraging Mr. Mzaiya, saying now we are talking and this is why we are here. So it promises to be fruitful engagement going forward. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the kind of contribution that we're seeking for. If we are talking solutions, if we are talking groundbreaking agreements that are going to be made to the betterment of the public transport sector, taxis in particular, it's this kind of content that we are after. So yes, Mr. Mzaiya, much appreciated. No holds barred, right? Now we're talking. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to now call upon Mr. Philip Taibosh. He is, of course, the president of Santaco, and he will also provide his contribution. Mr. Taibosh, the stage is yours.
Good morning, everybody. Program Director, Minister of Transport, Ntate Fikile Mbalula, Deputy Minister of Transport, Medi Keledi Magazi, the Director General, Ntate Alec Muyemi, Ntate Zwane, the Chairman of the Portfolio Committee, Mayor Kadimeng, the President of SALGA, leaders of business who are here, Tate Bonolo, leaders of labor represented here, leaders of the taxi industry from various sectors, guests and members of the media. Today marks another journey for the taxi industry. We venture into this road and simultaneously confident that this journey is the last leg of the one undertaken in 1996. When the taxi industry spoke boldly in unison that yes to regulations. We are saying yes to regulations, Minister. We support that. Yes to formalization. And I want the media to hear me very clearly that I'm not actually borrowing this formalization from anywhere else, especially when you compare to what has happened in the industry and the formalization that we've been speaking to. And indeed, yes to economic emancipation. Minister, the economic emancipation, if I have to indicate, is one of the three pillars that the government of the ANC, led by the ANC, brought to the industry in 1996. And also during the 2000, when Minister Dalla Oma brought all the taxi operators together, the issues which were to be addressed by the taxi industry was three. It was built on three pillars. One, it was unity within the taxi industry. Two, it was the eradication of violence. Three, it was the economic emancipation. Since that fateful year that later translated into what is known as Santaco in 2001. The taxi industry has always argued that whatever decision government make about the taxi industry has not been consistent with the NTT 1996 recommendation. This has broken our trust in government. And I must indicate, and I'm very impressed and very proud of the Director General that we are having, because you can see that somebody who has gone out to research for him to have this information. And Minister, thank you again for presenting us with the Director General of Mr. Miami's caliber. South Africa is now in the 6th administration with 25 years of democracy, but the taxi industry remained unsubsidized. This is despite it accounting for 70% of the transportation of employees, the majority of whom are government employees. Taxis continue to be financed at high interest rates, despite statistics South Africa showing the taxi industry as the most preferred mode of transport in the country, standing at 68%. Despite carrying the 15 million passengers per day, whom on a daily basis make the economy turn, the infrastructure, including ranking facilities that they use, is of concern. And I'm very happy that I'm sitting next to the president of SALGA, and I was whispering into her ear that, President Kadime, we will come to you because we need to assist. Minister, we are aware that there is problem of money in South Africa. But we don't just want to say, Menkadime, give us taxi rents. We want to come with the solutions, Menkadime. In our own plan, developed in 2009, dubbed the TR3 2020 strategy, we offered government solutions to our problems. Government embraced our initiatives and committed to fund it. Our strongest argument in the TR3 2020 strategy document is, for instance, was that an integrated transport system without integration of ownership is meaningless to the taxi industry. We advanced this precisely because we saw such endeavors by government as an attempt to collapse the taxi industry into small segments. In the contrary, we continue to find ourselves under siege through various pieces of legislations that took away from operators the legitimate right to operate a sustainable business and the constitutional right to subsidy, among others. Minister, I've seen recognition being given to farmers, being given to former apartheid institutions. And one was asking yourself that since there was this transition that was to take place, why is the taxi industry not also operated or given the same rights? For instance, the permit of the taxi operator, Minister, when it was issued as a permanent business permit. And we saw later on that it was now changed to 5 years. And we would like to engage with the minister around that, because we believe that the Constitution of South Africa provides us with the necessary responses to that. But we will discuss that later with the minister when we engage you on these issues. However, since assuming office, Minister, you have assured us that through the planned national taxi Lekgotla, all this will change. And I must say, Minister, you have been very consistent about this. While we embrace the national taxi indaba, we must express your ability to ensure that as from 1st April, we'll see the taxi industry being part of the subsidy regime speaking volume about your intentions. And I must indicate that, Minister, and maybe I must also be brave enough to apologize that while we were waiting for your answer, we decided to put our own answer in your process. But you came back and you really disciplined us and you showed us how to do things. And we will continue, Minister, supporting the processes of government in favor of our commuters. For 25 years, the taxi industry has been at pains to get government to include it in the subsidy regime without success. For 25 years, we felt our services to the general commuting public being unappreciated. We know that modalities of our participation are yet to be determined, but for this alone, we say thank you to you, Minister. The taxi industry is the bedrock of the public passenger transport. Apart from ferrying 15 million passengers alone, it also fits into the business of buses and trains, including Gautrain. So competition has never been a problem for us. On a yearly basis, the taxi industry alone spends. Minister, we spend 39 billion rands expenditure on fuel consumption, just only on fuel. That's what we are spending. 7 billion rand on manufacturing value of new vehicle purchased. And for now, I must indicate the taxi industry is purchasing every month 1,000 vehicles. George, you are my witness. 6.3 billion rand on vehicle financing and loans. 2.4 billion rand spent on insurance. At least 700 families, Minister, and here we have excluded 700,000 families supported by the taxi industry, and we have excluded actually, and if you take that into consideration, you'll see that we are over 1 million rand when you take all the hawkers who are making business at the taxi ranks. It is said that with this huge financial muscle, the taxi industry still finds itself in the periphery of the mainstream economy. We remain beggars to the wealth we are rightfully entitled to. We have witnessed equity ownership opportunities pass us. As manufacturing plants reached our shores, while the Department of Trade and Industry shared success of black industrialists in some areas, nothing really has been invested in the taxi industry to ensure its prosperity. We have been on our own. Today, you will launch the public discourse platform, Minister, affording the public, opinion makers, and experts to contribute in shaping the envisaged taxi industry of the future. We are therefore alive with the level of engagement we will find at the National Taxi Lekgotla, which we see as the battle of soul of the taxi industry. A lot of work lies ahead in preparation for this eventuality. But we can also assure you, Minister, that using the NTT recommendation as a benchmark, our participation in all these processes are solely with the intention to reclaim the taxi industry space as the economic powerhouse of the public passenger transport in South Africa. As we read the headlines about your ambitious plans for the taxi industry in the media, we want to make it clear that we intend to live every part of that ambition when we return from the Lekgotla. And Minister, finally, let me indicate that we as a taxi industry in this country, we will continue to be supportive of the endeavors of government in finding solutions. Because at the end of the day, We must make the community happy. Thank you very much.
Another round of applause, please, ladies and gentlemen, for President Taibosh. I think what he's had to say is very important because there are some, especially in the media space, that are of the view that the president of Santaco and the minister do not talk, that they do not have thorough engagements, that they don't enjoy a cordial relationship. But on the contrary, I think President Taibosh will remember that among the first key constituents that the minister met with when he assumed his current position was the taxi industry. And in fact, the first day in office, I remember that. In fact, the first day in office, Minister Balula said, I want to get the lay of the land. I want to know what is happening. Among those who are top of my agenda are, of course, those who are in the taxi industry, and we need to know what's happening there. And I believe that relationship has continued to date. Even in the wake of the outbreak of COVID-19, there have been regular conversations and discussions. And yes, sometimes you would not see eye to eye, but I think even Banabamoto from time to time will disagree, right? And then they will remember that, no, but we have a common objective here, which is to benefit the commuters, to benefit the industry, to benefit the government and the country as a whole. And it is those common points that always bring you together. So thank you very much for that. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to move on to issues of governance. Representing Salga, it is now a privilege, it's an honor, it's a great pleasure to call upon Ms. Thembi Nkadimeng. She is the president of Salga. A round of applause for her as well, please.
Thank you very much, Program Director, Honorable Minister of Transport, Minister Fikile Mbalula, the Deputy Minister, Medikeledi Makadzi, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Transport, Chair Babu Msebenzi Zwane, our MEC from Transport in Gauteng, Kulube, Mwanageshu, Jacob Mamabulo. I have adopted myself to be forcefully a daughter of Limpopo. So all of those who come from there, DG, I force myself that they are my brothers and my uncles to my children. The chairperson and the president of Santaco, Dr. Taibosh, it's good to meet you again this morning, and we continue with our conversation on behalf of the local government sector. Our taxi industry representatives who are also here and connected online, our business representatives who are here, the general members of our public, our representative from Labour, esteemed guest partnership from the media. I greet you all from the South African Local Government Association, which is representative of 257 municipalities in South Africa, and we are here to appreciate the opportunity, Honourable Minister, you have given us this morning to join and be partners in this in this minibus taxi industry. I've been talking to Mines yesterday. The launch of the public discourse engagement today, and also to be part of the reimagining of the future of transport and how it could look like. I must thank you, Honourable Minister, that you have started the process with us. Half the time, local government is at the end of the chain. And that is why it becomes difficult for government to realize some of its key aspirations. If we are not taken on board, we become a slow partner. And the cooperation and the speed that you need from us from the local sector then becomes an additional add-on, and we become late and you become unhappy. We are often overlooked fundamentally, but we are gaining traction as well in joining the one government, one plan, and one budget. And we are realizing that we are happy. In my other life, I'm an executive mayor of Lukwane municipality, and Tate Taibosh taught me a very painful lesson through Santago. We built a road in one of our main streets in town. And we started receiving complaints that taxi drivers are just stopping anywhere and the road is in the middle, in between a suburb. We're connecting two suburbs and communities were very happy. And I went to Santiago and I said, but my people are complaining that one, you are driving too fast, two, you are stopping anywhere else. And they said, Mayor, we're allowing to give you a ride in the morning as we commute with your people, taking them to their various destinations. And I acceded to the request. I got into a taxi, a very beautiful ride. I have a beautiful picture of that morning. I was a passenger. And the first lady said, can I please disembark here? And then the taxi driver asked me, Mayor, where must I stop? And I was like, where must you stop? And then he said, okay. We squeezed out of the road and people were hooting and we assisted the lady to get off and we got back on our journey. It's a main road. Memagats know it very well, is our Marshall Street. I think it's one of the longest streets in town in Polokwane. And in my view, we had done well because we had increased the road to 4 lanes. And I was like, okay, let's continue. We continued. And the second, it's towards the CBD. The second passenger said, towards Picard Street, can I please disembark? And the taxi driver complied and said, oh, Executive Mayor, where must I stop? And then I realized that in our sales planning, we didn't consult a key stakeholder. And at that time, we were busy outgrowing the outspan road, which is also taking our commuters towards the Bendo, Thornhill Drive with new supermarkets and shopping complexes. We were in the middle of that project. The contractor was on site, and I was forced to say to the contractor, hold on. We had to stop the contractor and go back and create side caps where the taxi can get out of the road and the passenger can disembark. And then they calculated with me, if you put a cap here, you put a cap here, you put a cap here, you will realize that none of your other road users will complain. And I think that was the greatest lesson for me, to understand that in our planning, if we are all together, the situation could be. So we are planning authorities, Honorable Minister, and we are required often to plan, budget, design, construct, and manage municipal infrastructure and transport facilities. A key instrument in these planning processes are the integrated transport plans, which include the operating transport licensing plans. And these plans require humans and capacity at a municipal level. And it can only be enabled to be correct if that skill is at a municipal level. And in my own municipality, big in Limpopo by our own standards, is that we did not have this skill that is required to do what was necessary at the time. And we had to ask from the city of Johannesburg for assistance to be able to do that. So if we are starting together and we combine our plans, we could be able at a municipal level, even if it doesn't mean hiring a new person, but rotating the skill just to assist us to plan design so that the remaining municipality can implement a properly planned and thought of as a partner in the process of ensuring that we all benefit in this business. Again, integrating land use and transport, particularly considering the integrated transport operations, is key, fundamental in municipalities in ensuring that we schedule and assist in being a dream for a lower part of our communities to ensure that devolution of functions from national should be done and the skill capacitated. The management of public transport facilities also needs to show confidence and evidence in consistent approaches to ensure that many areas in our public sector improve. To this end, as SALGA, we have identified that we will be a strategic partner in the areas of focus and work in partnership to develop proposals and improvement in this plan. You will only be better if you accept that you have had shortcomings or you have shortcomings as a sector, and you will need transport to assist you as a municipality so that the outcome is also all-embracive and all makes us jubilant within the sector, which means the municipality, yourself as a department, the partner in the taxi industry, and at the end, a happy commuter. Let me conclude by welcoming the dialogue process going forward, noting that it happens at a time where we are confronted with COVID-19, where we can draw quite a number of good lessons, partnerships and cooperations, which are essential in finding sustainable solutions for the challenges that we are facing today. SALGA is ready and available on behalf of all our municipalities to be a key stakeholder in this partner. I thank you.
My goodness, what a lesson to learn. But I think it's something that we all took note of as well, to say it's important to consult and engage far and wide whenever you are implementing anything. I think that's a perfect depiction of a government for the people and by the people, and which is the reason why Minister Mbalula made sure that we find all the stakeholders and search every nook and cranny to engage all South Africans and to have them also contribute to reimagining this taxi industry and finding ways towards reaching that taxi industry of the future. And which is why he said, for those who are not able to attend because of COVID-19 regulations and restrictions, we should make sure that this is broadcast far and wide, mainstream media, social media. He made sure that we also have these similar processes take place in the provinces. Those who are in the far-flung areas of South Africa and the rural areas, they will also be able to participate by ways of community platform and the like. It's important that we all engage, because you never know, that breakthrough idea that will catapult the industry to higher heights may come from some obscure place where you least expect. So we value all the contribution that will be coming through. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me now to call upon the chairperson of the Transport Portfolio Committee to give us his short message of support and address, Mr. Mosebenzi Zwane. May we please give him a round of applause as well, please. Thank you.
Program Director, thank you. Pardon me for using the back route. Minister of Transport, Comrade Figile April Mbalula, Deputy Minister LekgotlaDialogue, Member of the Executive Council in Gauteng, Mr. Jacob Mamabolo, President of SALGA Methembi Nkadimeng, the Director General of the Department of Transport, Ntate Alec Muyemi, leaders from our entities, all officials of the transport, President of Santaco, Ntate Philip Taibos, the taxi industry representatives that are present here today, all other stakeholders that are with us. Greetings to you all. Thank you, Minister, for organizing such a crucial event and inviting the Portfolio Committee to witness the department start a journey that should end by formalizing the taxi industry, enabling the industry to benefit itself, the commuters, and the South African economy at large. As the name suggests, this is a launch of the taxi LekgotlaDialogue to resolve challenges that faces the industry. It is our plea as the committee that all stakeholders should commit themselves to the outcome of this event and turn a new leaf in this industry. I'm sure that will go also for Ntate Mzwaia, all that you have given to the former chairperson of transport, just remind her and also take it to this Lekgotla so that what you desire becomes part of the plan. We are pleased with this initiative. I must mention here that we were also consulted, and Minister and Deputy Minister, we remain committed ourselves to this process. And we will be watching the space that once resolutions are taken, they are honored and they are implemented. We want to request the industry to focus and look forward. Once unity has been forged, let's move in that path and take that painful step to unite the people of South Africa, blacks in particular. Otherwise, Minister, because I'm standing between you and our lunch, I wish to be short and just say I'm a South African citizen. Yes, I come from Free State, but I wish to be seen as a South African. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, in the interest of time, I'm not going to bore you with a long introduction of the minister that you can quickly Google. I'm going to try and give you a bit of an introduction that you may not be familiar with, but that my colleagues in the Department of Transport can attest to. It is a privilege for me to call upon one of the most hardworking individuals I know, who is incredibly passionate about this process and has taken personal interest to make sure that it happens. I can tell you that he will call you all hours of the night, myself and Esetu and Lawrence and all of us, to make sure that we've done things correctly, because he wanted this process to be one that is dignity, that has respect, that is done thoroughly. And I think for that he deserves a resounding round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for going over and above the call of duty. The Honorable Minister of Transport, Minister Fikile Mbalula. Thanks, boss.
This is not sanitized. I don't know why. But for all other people, this was sanitized, but... No, thank you very much, Ayanda Ali Payne, the Program Director and Spokesperson of the Department of Transport, the Deputy Minister, LekgotlaDialogue, the Chair of the Portfolio Committee, Mr. Msebenzi Zwane. It is important that you attend and you responded positively to the invitation, because the Portfolio Committee oversee our work and our commitments, and they hold us accountable. But the Portfolio Committee also, that's where we pass the laws. And Mr. Mzwaia, I know you to be a brave man. And the Lekgotla is important because we must open up and talk the truth and strategize in order to resolve the inadequacies that arise in the system. And the Portfolio Committee is in the process in terms of the bill on e-hailing we're talking about. We are running with it, and it's not behind. I think it was interrupted by the COVID-19. So we are on track with regard to that. MEC of Gauteng, Comrade Jacob Mamabolo, is a very strong partner, and leading Gauteng is the center of where things are happening. Tembing Kadimeng the president of SALGA. SALGA is important to us because transport is a concurrent function. We are not like police, command and control. It's a concurrent function. People have got their own federations, smaller nyana, in their own corners. They've got a voice of some sort about what they can do, what they can spend. So it's a concurrent function, and local government is important in relation to this work. So when SALGA is here, all the other issues that we'll be addressing in terms of the taxi industry, SALGA is an important partner in terms of implementation. The president of Santaco, Ndate Taibosh, Philip Taibosh, is a leading partner in terms of what we want to achieve out of the Lekgotla. He's been around for many years. And during the times of Dala Omar, from the beginning, let me say, Meg Maharaj, Dala Omar, and then they came. I think who else came? Spoon Devele, Jeff Khadebe, Spoon Devele, and then Ben Martens, Dipuo Peters. Dipuo didn't come before Ben Martens or after. Dipuo Peters, Joe Maswanganyi, Bladen Zimande, and then Fikile Mbalula. And all other stakeholders present here, e-hailing, meter taxi, present here, distinguished guests. I want to thank you, distinguished guests, particularly from business and the unions. The unions are important because when I went to address NEDLEC, the unions were very vocal in relation to what must happen in this industry. And I'm shocked that only FEDUSA turned up, but I did call COSATU in the morning because NACTU was going to come. And then I had an apology that because of prior commitments and short notice, they could not make it. But I thought they will even send, even if it's a shop steward somewhere, to come, because it's important for COSATU and all other unions. But I want to thank FEDUSA from the bottom of my heart. Let's walk this journey. You were very vociferous at NEDLEC about Section 77 and the 100%. And I explained to you that what are the challenges that are facing this industry and what we'll be grappling upon. So the time of flexing the muscle in the discourse and not talking and assisting what needs to happen, I think we should put it in our back burner. And this is the process we are starting in the Department of Transport. And it's not a reaction. It's something we planned from day one. It's our mandate. When President Ramaphosa appointed me, at least not at night, daylight, none as a Minister of Transport, one of the priorities of the sixth administration, when we asked for your votes, we said we'll formalize this industry, we'll regulate it, and will ensure that it is subsidized. Didn't we say that? When we were asking for you, and you attempted to even form a political party, but we clobbered you. And that political party did not fly. So we went to the taxi people, and this is what we said we must do. We'll formalize this industry, and this is where we are. And government long took that decision. And we'll speak to that as we go. And I'm very happy that the unions are present here. And NEDLEC, the constituency of NEDLEC sector is here with us. And your input, sir, is valued. And don't pull back. I could see you were looking at Taibosh and you were afraid to say all what you want to say. Don't pull back. Work with us. We want constructive engagement and realistic. Because part of the problem of South Africa we have created a lot of problems for this country. And that is why we are here where we are today. When Bafana lose, we don't tell them straight in their face that they are losers. We say they tried. That's the problem of South Africa. When people are going wrong, we tell them that, no, they tried, shame. Because they try what? You are a loser, you have lost. And then you will only bring yourself up because you know that you have lost. And then you've got to work yourself up because you deserve to be there. And you must first look at the country, look at where you come from. Even at home, how you socialized. They will always tell you, asimazi kelo in our family. Ngoba bonke abantwana bamba nembeko lo ukhwata mazi uvelaphi. I don't know which passage he did not go through because all my children went through this. Rich or poor, people will pride themselves about family as a root. So it is important that we understand where we come from and that we deal with the subject issues head on in terms of this Lekgotla. A few months ago, and let me also thank the media for showing interest in this process because it is important. Because this is not just a discourse and a talk shop. It is a discourse with a meaning that must produce a result. But your interests show the importance of the taxi industry and transport in our country. Because you go with your cameras right in the taxi ranks. You are in the taxis because some of you don't have cars. But you know the life of public transport in the Republic. And I wish to acknowledge you and thank you for attending this discourse and follow up on populating our discussions. A few months ago, I declared my intention to convene a national taxi indaba, which will emerge with a groundbreaking compact that will take the transformation of the taxi industry to its logical conclusion. The outcomes of this industry will not be lip service, but a tangible and achievable program of action that will set the industry on a sustainable path. We began this journey right at the moment after we were appointed by the president. This remains part of our agenda. From NetMap and also from our manifesto of the sixth administration to complete what needed to be done for the taxi industry. Ladies and gentlemen, the history of the taxi industry is littered with gruesome tales of conflicts and violence. Some of it does persist today. That has left many people dead and families robbed of breadwinners. It is a history of struggles for survival. This is an industry that has pioneered its own growth and evolution despite difficult odds. When Alec Muemi, the DG, was tracing the history of this industry, he did allude to some of this. 1987-88, this industry was deregulated. Meaning that everybody must go and see for themselves. And then that is when apartheid regime used elements in the industry to sponsor public violence. That is why the concept of inkabi, when you want killers, you find them in the taxi industry. They are trained, they stay there. It comes with that particular history. Many initiatives aimed at forging unity in the industry have seen the light of the day over the last decades, and many have failed. Now, it is a decade of good and the bad, in the sense that there is an unfinished business which is what we are about. And our forebears, as I recall their names, and among them, Comrade Dala Omar, laid the basis firmly in terms of regulating the taxi industry and undoing the past in terms of this industry. The first administration of the Democratic South Africa initiated the National Taxi Team, which is called the NTT, to find a lasting solution to the challenges facing the industry and to develop a blueprint for its sustainability. Tate Bosch, wherever I'm with him and others, he speak at length about this particular process. We all know that the final recommendations of the NTT were a product of robust and honest engagements with both the industry and civil society. These recommendations, which were a product of consensus between the taxi industry and civil society, affirm the need for an industry that is formalized, effectively regulated, and economically empowered. It is 26 years into freedom, and the question you must ask, yes, you contribute 40 billion rand as the taxi industry combined. It can be fuel and all of that. But do you own anything in this industry? That is the question we must ask. And that is the question we must answer. Unity of the industry is sacrosanct and central to any form of regulation or empowerment. I've been assured by the industry that we all share a common vision of a united taxi industry that is able to speak in one voice. There are areas where we are not in agreement, but the public discourse platform will provide us with a platform to engage robustly and find each other. The National Taxi Lekgotla will be a platform where we will consolidate consensus on sustainable ways to formalize and regulate the industry. This will be underpinned by an economic empowerment model that must benefit every single taxi operator and not only those who are in leadership. An assessment of how far we have come since the acceptance of the final recommendations of the NTT will underpin the discussion documents that will be released in the coming weeks, covering various themes. The National Taxi Lekgotla will be about reimagining a taxi industry of the future, where it is a major player in the economy. Many critical challenges remain and require our collective wisdom and unity of purpose to tackle them in a decisive manner. Unity of the industry remains a pervasive challenge as violence and conflict driven by turf wars and leadership contestations continues unabated. Associations remain unregulated and operators are not held accountable for their conduct through an enforceable code of conduct. Leadership of the South African National Taxi Council, SANTAGO, as a recognized industry representative body, is contested. The taxi industry continues to operate as an informal sector on the fringes of our economy. It is not structured along legally recognized business units, and many operators do not contribute to the tax base in the form of corporate tax. I know that Tate Bosch contests this point with me all the time, and he says that we pay tax. And I'm saying we don't pay corporate tax and do not comply with the labor laws to ensure workers are protected. In COVID-19, drivers, vulavalas and all of that could not benefit from UIF because they are not registered. They just wake up, go to work. When you die, you die. You don't get anything from the industry. So we need to shape up the business model. We need to shape up the empowerment model so that we are not made to fight over inqatha ngesixhosa ndiyazi ngesilungu. Lilahlelwe pha inqatha kodwa inyama ayikho nixhaphile kodwa nixhaphe inqatha. Inyama imkile. The meat is gone. But you are only left with the fat. And you are fighting for the fat. So we must fight for the real thing, ownership. The economic model in this country, if we talk about radical economic transformation, it must be proven with the industry, the taxi industry. Radical economic transformation must be proven with this particular industry. These are not moments for insurrectionary phrase mongering. It's about tangible. What do we mean by empowerment? How does the government come to the party? How does the taxi industry also get to own this? You will listen to some of the things we are putting on the table for a robust debate going to the Indaba. The regulatory framework remains weak and ineffective due to a fragmented approach in law enforcement. Where you come from, Tembi, you are doing your own thing. In Bloemfontein, they're doing their own thing. Because transport is a concurrent function, it is important that we must unite our approach. We are hosting the National Indaba, or Lekgotla, from the 29th of October to the 30th of October, 2020, at the end of the October Transport Month, which means we've got September and the whole month to accelerate work and discussions on some of these important issues. However, the build-up towards the Lekgotla will consist of the following activities. Today is one of those. We launch the Lekgotla and explain to you through this launch what are we tackling, and which I'll go into the details in terms of that. We are tackling a fundamental and close the gap on the following issues. Regulating the industry, which I will go into deeper details on that. Unity of the industry. Formalization of the industry. Empowerment and subsidy of the industry. And once all these four are achieved, then we can talk professionalization. What the DG is dreaming of, that is chicken or beef, you won't get it in the taxi. What we want at the end is professionalization of a driver who knows that. Have you all fastened your safety belts? Have you all fastened your safety belts? Go through the routine and ensure that everybody else, everything is done. Single ticketing, money does not circulate. 4x4, I take the seats. We kill it. Professionalization will be achieved as the fifth element of the four, if we agree. And we've got to then ensure that all of those things are addressed in this Indaba. There is not only a consensus, but there is an agreement. It's going to be robust in a sense that we are not going to go to Stellenbosch, to all other universities to help us. They will help us at the end. But to begin to interrogate these issues is going to be informed by the practical experience of those who operate in this industry. We don't want somebody who talk about taxis, but he's never owned a taxi. And he doesn't understand the challenges the taxi industry is dealing with. That's what is important. Those are the four issues we need to resolve in terms of the taxi Indaba. We will have discussion documents that will be released in the next coming weeks. The task team charged with coordinating this effort will engage with various stakeholders, as we'll have done. And we have seen some of the stakeholders. And I'm also today inviting them to continue to be part of us, and broadly speaking, everyone else to make a contribution. It does not matter. Organized and unorganized, make a contribution in this particular process. We'll have webinars because we are not allowed to have mass gatherings. We will not be in a position to do that. Webinars, we'll have them, and so on, to engage with stakeholders, opinion makers, those who've got a view on the following issues, what must happen to the taxi industry. We will also benchmark ourselves against countries that have achieved the result on these 4 issues. We don't operate in an island. We will look in the African continent, which country has achieved formalization, have fully integrated with government, have implemented subsidy. We know the United Kingdom is one model. We know New York City is one model. We will also need to know in the African continent, in situations like us, which governments have actually achieved the same result. And also look at the path we have traversed since from 1996. We will have provincial lekgotlas in the provinces, starting from the district, because we want our people to speak and speak for themselves. So the launch of this public platform is an invitation to the taxi industry, to the workers, commuters, and the rest of civil society to engage with this discussion and tackle the opportunity to participate in formulating the blueprint for taxi industry of the future. The discussion documents that will inform the content of the public discourse and the provincial lekgotla, ultimately the national taxi lekgotla, cover the following issues, which I said I will elaborate. First, unity and leadership. The NTTT final recommendations that were accepted by government directed that leadership structures must be established at national, provincial, and regional levels, representing the entirety of the industry. The leadership structure must represent all types of taxi operations, short distance, long distance, and meter taxis at all levels. Over the last 25 years, a lot of progress was made in this regard with the establishment of Santaco in 2001. The diagnostic path we have traversed and the progress made over the last 25 years means that we must have an honest and robust conversation on all these issues. This includes the leadership of the industry and whether there is a need to review some of the choices we have made over the years to accommodate others. And what approach are we going to take in relation to that? We recognize Santaco as the leader of the industry up until today, and I explained that even to the president. And to us in government, that is why we even support Santaco financially. It's not a secret. For the first time, I had at the portfolio committee, Mr. Chairperson of the portfolio committee, that this thing is not known. How can we give 25 million to Santaco and you don't know? Then you don't read annual reports of the Department of Transport. You only read annual reports of the Department of Sports. Because if you read transport annual reports, you will know that Santaco is sponsored, supported by government. Its offices are in government. And it's not correct, again, to say that their financial statements are in a total state of disaster. And DG can speak on that. It's incorrect. What has actually happened is that there are disagreements between bodies that have decided to go their own, like NTA leadership in this country. And in this particular instance, they've got a view and a perspective in terms of taxi leadership in the Republic. And we have been talking to NTA even last night, till midnight, we're talking to them, including about their participation today. And to explain to them that government recognizes Santaco. And that is why Philip Daibosh, not because he comes from Bloemfontein or wherever he comes from, I found him here, spoke today. Not that NTA does not have an opinion about what must happen. They do robust views, and they believe in diversity and all of that in terms of broadening this, but government can never deal with the taxi industry if it's fragmented. So we must have an honest conversation about this particular matter. And it is important to do that. Even throughout the pandemic and managing what is happening in the country, we have been talking to Santaco and to NTA in all fronts as government in engaging with transport in the Republic. And the process of this Lekgotla will examine some of these particular issues. And they speak about 2001 and where they come from, where it was Santaco and it changed to Santaco to accommodate each other. But in the end, that did not happen. And our biggest mistake, again, as government, which we need to criticize ourselves, we allowed that gap to continue over the years. And we never address it. I don't know who you want to address it. You allow the gap to grow, and then things to develop legs, the situation to continue. Now, President Ramaphosa says we cannot allow that. We must deal with the taxi industry as a united force so that we can address the issues that we're talking about. And moreover, this is a black industry. Gone are the days when black people used to own taxis for white people, and they become front. But today, black people own taxis, but bayashona ngomashonisa. Because when you get retrenched in the mind, the first business you think of is a taxi. And then you come here, you drown. Gone is the business. So we seek to address all these discussions going forward in the Lekgotla. The discussions will also look at models that include making a case for the apex leadership structure to be a council, whose leaders must not be encumbered on associations. We have no intention of elevating or establishing an association to a position of an apex industry representative body. Our commitment is towards a council that truly represents every operator without fear or favor. The Taxi Lekgotla must interrogate and ask the question, what kind of council should be an apex industry representative body? Should it be a statutory body established through an act of parliament with roles and powers prescribed in law? Or the current status quo must actually continue? Should it be a professional body mandated to develop and enforce industry standards? Should it be a voluntary association that exists to look after the interest of its members? On regulation, discussions about regulation primarily revolve around operating licenses and enforcement. The challenges experienced over the years relating to the issuing of operating licenses, which includes challenges of non-responsiveness of municipalities, Tembi, to applications resulting in saturation of routes, as these operating licenses are issued without due regard to transport planning. The point that you yourself was talking about, dear Mayor. The current planning framework and the extent to which it affects the issuing of operating licenses will come under scrutiny with a view to emerge with a model that advances our objectives. The prevalence of illegal operators affects the industry and government in many ways. We are saying, as the Department of Transport, in terms of INATIs, we've got 137 taxi operators. But we know, as I speak now with you, we've got more or less 300,000 on the ground. Yanung ka Setswana ba re ke tla le hepa yang le tlhakatlhakane yana. Now, how am I going to feed you when you are so mixed up? You must all come by queue. Means it must be regulated. When we see you on the road, there must be proper regulation that you are on point. That is what needs to happen. Finally, the legal operators, they shrink the revenue base by complicating the supply side of business through uncontrolled entry into the market. Secondly, they provide perverse incentive for conflict. Thirdly, they worsen the industry safety profile as they are more prone to employing illegal and dangerous tactics to get customers and maximize profits. Fourthly, they distort planning and by extension adversely affect the efficacy of planning and law enforcement. Lastly, they perpetuate criminality. The discussions will also look at strong disincentives aimed at those who operate illegally, with penalties that include monetary penalties, impoundment of vehicles, suspension of driver's licenses, or combination of measures. However, this conversation will take into account the current reality of the significant number of operators in the industry without operating licenses. This includes a number of e-hailing providers and 7-seater vehicles on our roads. When we clear ourselves going forward, it means when we undertake the route, it means you must bring all your particulars to the fore. But this is a discussion we are basically going to have and how we foresee the regulating process in South Africa so that we deal with legit people within the system. Now coming to industry empowerment model. The taxi Lekgotla must emerge with an empowerment model that truly empowers the industry, with the real beneficiaries being individual operators. We have committed to reimagining the taxi recapitalization program such that the real beneficiaries of this massive public investment are taxi operators, rather than commercial banks, retailers, and other corporates. Now, you have seen a movie before we started. That is why we brought you here. I wanted us to be in the sun so that we can get some vitamin D. That will be good for COVID-19. Now they put us here, and it's cold. Chances of contracting this disease are 100%. The sooner we finish, the better. But the sun was the brilliant place to be at. Now, this is recapitalization, destroying of taxis and all of that. And we are saying that in terms of the empowerment model, we're spending billions in terms of this project. We must reimagine this in terms of the discussion. We know that we've got an impasse with the taxi industry on some of these particular issues. Our empowerment model is also going to speak to recapitalization in terms of what needs to be done. To date, government has spent in excess of 4 billion rand and will spend more billions over the next 5 years in this particular project. The end game is a taxi industry that is able to recapitalize itself and benefits of this business cascading down to the last operator on the ground. Discussions include the establishment of corporate entities as empowerment vehicles of choice to ensure economic benefits reach all operators in the industry. Various options are being considered, which include either establishing a national cooperative bank owned by the taxi industry or establishing a national private company that will participate in economic activity on behalf of the operators, or a combination of various models. That is the discussion we must resolve at the Indaba. We must not be apologetic about creation of a business value chain that is entirely owned by the taxi industry, with strict conditions to comply with tax and labor laws, alongside conduct that reinforces unity. We say that we pour fuel, we fix the tires, where we buy the product. In the value chain, where does that end up? How does it basically benefit the taxi industry? The Lekgotla must agree that operators who get involved in conflict and taxi violence should face severe penalties, which may include withdrawal of their operating licenses and any economic benefit sponsored by government. We have made a firm commitment to introduce a subsidy system that includes full participation of the taxi industry. The taxi industry transports on a daily basis commute 15 million people, as in comparison to trains and all other modes of transport. In South Africa, we are talking about an integrated transport network, IPTN, going forward, and this is what we are implementing. And the taxi industry is an integral part of that. When we raised the issue that the taxi industry can and should be subsidized by government, many began to ask, no, it's not possible. Certain things must actually happen. So when we talk about regulating, formalization, and all of those things, among others include empowerment and subsidy. And that is why in our planning cycle, we are planning that by 1st April in the next financial year, once we had concluded the issues of debate and discussion at the taxi industry, subsidy for the industry will kick in for the next financial year. Those discussions are at an advanced stage between the Department of Transport and our breadwinner, Tito Mboweni, in the country. Because we've got to finalize those discussions so that in terms of our planning, we are able to effect this into practical implementation by the 1st of April, not because it's my birthday date, 1st of April, and it's not April's full date. 1st of April, we kick in the implementation of what this Lekgotla have resolved, and that includes subsidization. We are hard at work at the present moment as a department to reprioritize whatever we've got, including the grants, to meet the goals of what we want to achieve at the Indaba. So everything else will be looked at in terms of what we want and what we want to achieve going forward. So the Lekgotla is not just a talk shop. It's important to our goals. It is a conversation that we must have, and we can't talk past each other. It is a compact we must produce. Today we launch, and the 30th of August, we produce a deal for everyone. And that deal for meter taxis and e-hailing is already in the pipeline in the form of the legislation that is coming into being. And that deal will also envisage this reimagining that must include the perspective on carbon emissions. We must not be caught unprepared in this country like it happened all the time. You ask people, how did Uber arrive in this country when there is government and it was not regulated? Nobody is able to answer you. And you ask them about many other things, including the e-tolls. Because you go to Germany, you find people not using toll gate. Copy that, you bring it to South Africa. Abantu balapha baqhela toll gate ukuma babhatale baqithe. Yeah, every 5 minutes. They didn't know about it. They thought it's World Cup. Later on, they were told, hey, we are patara mhlekazi every time udlula. But yeah, ngisho nabo bangakhokhi ama e-tolls. Even those who don't pay e-tolls in Soweto, ayaswakhokhi baba ama e-tolls and all of that. But taxis and buses transporting the working class and everybody don't pay e-tolls. It's only me and you who's supposed to pay. But let's leave that discussion, because you will second guess me again on that one. It's one another headache that I must resolve, and I'm on the process of resolving. So now it is important that we must understand that these are the things that we want to achieve and that we want to implement by the beginning of the new financial year, and introduce the subsidy scheme for the taxi industry. So taxi industry, majority black and a black industry. We subsidize buses, fine and good. Yes, we'll continue to do that. They carry our people. But what do we say? We say public transport must be safer and affordable. So when we talk about subsidy, we don't only talk about the operator, we mean even those who use public transport. It must be affordable. And it must be professional. Everybody must use taxis back and forth to work. Today, to pay for your own taxi per month is about 18,000 and 15,000. You must pay. That's why a taxi driver is always in a hurry, because umoshe iskhathi. And then when he arrives there and the owner is counting the money, he says, "Uya chelta ka wena. Udli mali yami. Why le mali short namhlanje?" Because every day he knows how much he gets. Worse with COVID-19 is worse, because people are not commuting on a daily basis. So we have made that firm commitment, and we are announcing it here today as government. This is what we are going to be discussing when we talk about empowerment model with the taxi industry. And we're going ahead with its implementation in the new financial year. Discussion on professionalization include a number of important issues that impact on commuters and other road users. In addition to addressing universal access to taxis and related infrastructure for those who are physically challenged, and discussion will also entail the following in terms of professionalization, road safety, the conduct of taxi operators on the road, displaying flagrant disregard of the law, and the rights of other road users remains a pervasive problem and will find expression in the public discourse. Options on the table for discussion include a proposal for an enforceable code of conduct supported by a penalty regime, which may, amongst others, include a form of demerit system similar to ARTO. The second point in terms of professionalization of the industry include a discussion on customer care and community safety. Shoddy customer service and safety of commuters continue to characterize industry operations. Penalties for operators who violate customer care standards, which may be incorporated into the proposed code of conduct, will be considered. Complaints mechanisms are also under consideration, and this must be effective with tangible consequences. Lastly, in terms of professionalization is the gender-based violence. The prevalence of gender-based violence in the taxi industry remains a source of serious concern. This discussion has been muted for too long, and it is time it is confronted head-on. And active measures must be put in place to address this decisively. Such measures must include safety of women and children in the taxi environment, with particular emphasis on the girl child. And these are the strategic issues that we are placing in the discourse, debate, and solutions as we move towards the taxi Lekgotla. And this Lekgotla is very important to basically fix and resolve some of the outstanding issues that are important for this particular industry. And to sum them up, once towards the conclusion, is to deal with the question of the regulation of the industry, and to deal with the issue of formalization, to deal with the issue of unity of the industry, to deal with the issue of empowerment and subsidy of the industry. We've got many models, but we must at the end agree to one. And chief amongst that is how we envisage the subsidy for the taxi industry, the one we seek to implement. We are putting money aside, reprioritizing our grant framework to ensure that we subsidize the taxi industry. That is what is going to come at our doorstep. So, if you like it, this compact will come from a rigorous process of negotiations. So this is a process, pyramid process we are launching today. We are launching a process that goes to everywhere and for a robust discussion and the debate in terms of what must actually happen. And when we finish by October, we've got the resolutions. And those resolutions, some of which require legislation, they will then be taken forward. But those in terms of economic model that must be implemented will be implemented with immediate effect. But over and above that, we cannot achieve all of these things. They will remain a pipe dream if ever there is no unity within the taxi industry. Many people are getting older and they are passing on. And as we pass on the baton, we've got to agree on these particular issues. And most of the time, I like to say this, I see Santaco being challenged, and NTA, they fight a lot, but they agree on one thing, money. There's no fight. They agree about money. Uguti, where money must go, they agree. We are resolving a number of issues as I move towards conclusion that include the relief fund. The DG has been mandated to engage on that. We're going to resolve on those particular issues. The regulations were at 100% at the present moment. We're beginning to normalize and all of that. Long distance is hard hit and they're still at 70%, and we address some of these particular issues. This part of the project that we are at here in terms of recapitalization must be brought to its logical conclusion. And we'll bring it to its logical conclusion as we embark on the new path, because we still have money. We've got cars we've got to still recapitalize. We must finalize that particular process and bring it to a conclusion. Last time I was here, building on what Blayton Nzimande, former minister, has started, and then we could not find each other with the taxi industry. But all of those issues will bring to conclusion as we embark on the new path. As you listen to our story, we are not starting something new. We are finishing the road. All the past ministers have done their job, but they did not finish. But the vision was there. So we're not starting something new. Something new is Uber. Inchai Uber is new on the block. And when I was in the police, I used to compare Uber and the lifestyle. Hey, I was attacked by Ntate Taibosh. Or Umbalula Ukhuliswe ngono taxi, manje is talking what he's saying. And now they were fighting with the meter taxis and all of that. And we had to bring in the legislation. And salute to Joma Swangani and Minister Platin Zimande. They started that particular process. And to all of you who participated in that. And I agree with you. We are bringing that. The chair of the committee is here. We are bringing that to a logical conclusion. And that is the work that has been started by my forebears, and we're concluding that. And this recapitalization process will inform and be part of our reimagining the new approach going forward. But for now, it is important we must ease, and the leadership of the country must talk, and we must converse. And there will be no holy cows. Don't keep yourself in the corner and not come to the debate, because you lose the opportunity. There is a steering committee that is coordinating all the discussions, and we are all invited to participate in this particular process. I therefore invite all taxi operators, taxi drivers, and all South Africans to join us in conversation as we put together a blueprint for a taxi industry that is an integral part of the formal economy and is truly empowered. Masijule Ngengo, I thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to request that we give a more enthusiastic round of applause. I think, yes, it's been a long morning, but we can afford to give a little bit more than that. Thank you very much. Minister, if I may just take a moment to read a tweet that came in prior to your engagement this morning. It was from Ramatumbela, who says, I really hope this Taxi Lekgotla is not just a forum to table wish lists. Nothing is achievable without a clear plan of action. Mr. Ramatumbela, I trust that you've been answered and that you have a little bit more faith in the process now that Minister Mbalula has taken to the podium. You've heard for yourself, as has the entire Republic, that the deadlines indeed are clear, that the topics have been outlined. We have Umkombandlela for the future of the taxi industry. And we look forward to not only yourself, but the entire South Africa holding us to account on what we've had to say today. Ladies and gentlemen, to give us our closing remarks, please allow me now to call upon the Gauteng MEC for Roads and Transport, MEC Jacob Mamabolo. MEC, welcome.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Let me, without any waste of time, acknowledge and appreciate and sincerely thank the political and executive leadership of the department, Honorable Minister and Deputy Minister. Thank you very much for organizing what will remain a very historic, memorable, successful event, and for your leadership and guidance, and of course for choosing our province in which we pride ourselves as the home ground of smart mobility. And I must say, Minister, we are also ready, depending on where the alert levels will be, but if it will be at the time when we could have an event that would be allowed outside alert levels, let me bid that our province is ready to host, Minister. Allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to also take this opportunity to acknowledge and appreciate the presence of the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, who's leading in transport on oversight, and thank you for being present in the event. And of course, the president of SALGA, who really made me felt at home in Gauteng. I hope you're feeling at home in our province. And greet everybody at home in Limpopo when you go home. Deputy Minister, let's greet everybody at home, DM. let me acknowledge and greet the president of Santago and thank him very much. When I was sworn in, you came to the event, and I would like to thank you a lot. Allow me to acknowledge the Deputy Provincial Chairperson of Santago in our province, Mr. Tsebe. Thank you. Thanks a lot, leadership, for coming. And all the different stakeholders that have delivered excellent and very remarkable messages of support. For time, I would have actually wished to go through each one of them. But, Minister, my time for transport is actually gone with 30 minutes. At 12, I start health. So, for that, please forgive me. I need to start with health. I've actually taken time of health. So forgive me for that. Let me also thank our accounting officer, the Director General, and I agree with what the President said about his excellent leadership and for organizing a good event, leading all the team all the officials in the department that have worked very hard to put this event together. I also want to take this opportunity to thank our hosts for a very good facility, the Tax Scraping Agency. Thank you very much. And let me also just say to our media in Gauteng that you always never disappoint, and that's why we can proudly bid to host Minister. The media houses in Gauteng are very supportive in always communicating a positive message coming from transport. So I'd also like to thank them. With all those, I hope I have acknowledged everybody, all protocols. Sincere apologies if I'm leaving anyone out. It's purely because health is calling. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. Thanks, Honorable Minister.
Thank you so much, MEC. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, we have come towards the end of our proceedings today, but it is not goodbye. It is till we meet again, because we look forward to hearing from you in the various webinars and the virtual platforms through which we will engage. We look forward to meeting with you again at the Lekgotlas and the provinces. So this conversation definitely will continue. We look forward to hearing from you. So it's not goodbye. It is rather let the discussions begin. Thank you very much. Just before we go, may I please also invite you to go and receive some lunch packs at the back. I'm going to ask that we please remember to observe social distancing, at least when we do so. I'm going to ask that we go row by row, starting from the back. If you can just make your way out, collect your pack, and then you can come and be seated if you still have business here. But if not, then thank you so much for coming, and you can make your way home. Again, we do appreciate your time today. Drive safely. Thank you so much, Minister. Thanks, Deputy Minister. Very much, colleagues.